And remember that one, camera, because honestly, I watched the last one. Hello, so we are live. I think we're now live. Yes. Hello and welcome to Parkour Theory at the Halle Hamburg. My name's Calum. This guy's Biko, and we are here tonight to talk about Ollerup, one of my favorite places for those of you who've talked to me for 2 seconds. But before we do that, I would quickly like to introduce Biko. Biko is a coach here at the Halle. He's been here since forever, I believe. We're going to find out a little bit more about him before we get onto a chat about Ollerup. Hello, Biko.
Hey.
How is it talking in an empty Halle?
Yeah, it's weird seeing this place completely empty. Like, I'm kind of used to it that it's full of people doing sick jumps, having fun, and now just this different environment. Also, kind of new for me talking to a camera, getting used to this stuff.
As I said, it's mainly just a chat between me and you. I'm not even sure how many people are watching. Imagine nobody's watching.
Maybe that is actually a chat just in a empty gym.
Yeah, no, like most of our conversations. But before I actually this week I've written down a list so we don't get distracted by all of the things we talk about, because Biko and I can talk a lot about a lot and a long time about a lot of things. So I'd like to quickly ask you, what are you doing at the moment? What do you study? Are you doing anything we should know about?
All right. Yeah, as already said in the introduction, I've been in Ollerup now for 4 months, 4.5 months. And normally in my day-to-day life, I'm here coach at the Halle. I also do some organization stuff, which is like related to schools and social organizations, NGOs. And on top of that, I study sports science. And with the Halle, I'm since 2017, and kind of got more and more over time. Just love this place.
Nice. So what did you say we were studying?
Sports science.
Sports science. Which uni is that? Because I should probably.
Uni Hamburg. Is that?
Hamburg. My question is also, before we go into it, is how did you start parkour? I love that question.
Oh, how did I start parkour?
Give us a short synopsis of how you got into
it. So there was like, I think when I was 12, I saw like the Yamazaki movie and was like, oh yeah, okay, this shit is cool, but I didn't know what it's called. And then 5 years later, I knew, okay, there's this thing called parkour, but how do I start? And I had this one friend who was already doing parkour, but switched to tricking. And then he taught me the basics, and from there developed, got more into the community, and yeah, over time, start to understand a little bit more what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, more like trial and error.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's everyone's. As much as I like this question, how did you get into parkour? It's basically the same. A friend of mine kind of did it. I failed at things a lot, and then I kept going, which is pretty much pretty much everyone's thing. So we're now. Yeah, I wanted to ask about how you found out about all of it, because I think for those of you who do parkour, then you might know it because of the jams. And for those of you who don't do parkour, then you might not have heard it at all unless you do gymnastics or other things. But I just want to ask, so before you explain what Ollerup is, because that's an interesting question, I want to ask, how did you hear about it? What was your knowledge of it before going?
So before I went to the jam, like a few times, actually in the beginning, I didn't knew that this place where you can study. I just knew it for the jam, and then noticed, okay, there's actually something more to it, but I didn't actually know what it was. I thought more like it's a kind of training area. We have the option to train shitloads, which is to some degree definitely true. And yeah, then I had like friends like you and Francie who been there, and I was like, okay, this is an interesting thing, and had for a long time the idea to go there. And then when it worked out, I noticed it's actually more than a training space, but it was still a great experience.
Yeah. What were you expecting before you went? Do you know what I mean?
So I mean, on their page, they give you introduction. They'll be like, yeah, you have like this line class, which in my case is parkour. But you have also other classes like Danish and NGO or intercultural studies. So I knew there's like something.
What does NGO stand for again? I honestly ask it. I forget every single time when I try to explain to people. But I think
I think it's non-governmental
Non-governmental organizations.
Yes, I think that's it.
So you learn when you study Ollerup, you learn about
What we do here, kind of.
yeah what non-governmental organizations, and there's a lot of them actually. That was a really interesting class for me to be like, wow.
Yeah, it's like just super much to it, and then we looked also into leadership, different concepts, how you can approach it. Community is also like big topic.
And did you know about that? Is that what you expected beforehand? That you knew about that aspect?
Not in this amount.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I have like every class like maybe once a week, and the rest of the time I'm just training all the time.
Yeah.
And then I noticed, and yeah, I saw it's called like Ollerup Højskole, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, just the name. And actually, that it stands for more. The Højskole thing is like a school concept, so there's much more to it. Yeah, there's much more to it. So I was like kind of surprised when I noticed, okay, this is actually more school-like than I thought it is. And there definitely were a few like Danish was not my favorite subject, let's say it like that. But yeah, all in all, even though it got me a little bit surprised what it actually is, I think in the end, I really appreciated all of it.
Yeah. What? I was gonna ask if you were. What if you were to describe to someone? Imagine I don't know anything about Ollerup, right? What would you do? What would you describe Ollerup as?
Actually, this is more tricky than
Right?
the dreams, but I would say it's some kind of alternative school. At least in Germany, we don't have something similar because it's something between you finish school and you study. It's something in between. And for example, I was studying and went anyway there. So, and in this school, they teach you on the one hand, like a certain kind of movement. They have like different fields of expertise. Like Ollerup is like gymnastic, parkour based, and dance. There are other schools that do like complete different sports, but also they really try to teach you like a different concept of learning, and also so it's like in one way, how do you teach, but also you look at community and like NGOs and leadership, and it's also like even though because you live there, it's a quite intense like intense experience being there, and also like the topic of values in it and all of those things got like quite important. Now I'm going like through everything.
No, it's okay. Keep going. So stick. If as I said, imagine I wasn't there. You said that it's a school.
Yeah. So also I think you also learn to see like bigger picture. Kind of maybe at first I was like, yeah, when I teach parkour, I want people to learn to do jumps and all that. And now I'm thinking more like, yeah, okay, I want to use it as a tool to teach something.
Yeah, I think. Welcome. Do you know how hard it is now? Do you understand how hard it is to talk about Ollerup?
It is.
So for those who don't know, I was also a student at Ollerup before Biko, and talking about Ollerup is quite a difficult thing to do, especially because, as Biko said, it's kind of outside of the. It's got a different. I would say it has a completely different focus to most schools.
Yeah.
A completely different focus. As I just wanted to point out as well, just from what Biko said, there are other sports. There's other schools that are like Ollerup, the high school, but you can also do like outward bound, or you can do like rock climbing, or you can do maybe rock climbing. But you know what I mean? It's not necessarily even a sport. Some of these places are, it's a subject. As Biko just said, it's about using that subject as a tool to teach other things. And I think also you can do after schools. Do you know about after? Yeah. Oh, that's the question I was going to ask you. If you were to describe what the high school idea is, or the high that concept, what would you describe that concept as in terms of the high school idea?
I would say it's on the one hand like they teach you about community, as I said, and like also like the importance of different leadership qualities, and so it's like I could say it's like kind of a holistic approach to learning, and but also it gives you enough freedom that you can decide where you put your focus on. For me, it was there like I was there to train mainly parkour. Of course, I learned loads of other stuff as well, but this was my focus. But there were other people who were like more, I want to try to do like meet as many people as possible, be very social. And other people were like, there was a girl who was like, I'm going to learn like she learned like Portuguese in 3 months. Like you just like, I'm here to I'm learning shit and I'm explore parkour also a bit. There was people who just started parkour. So like many different kind of focus points. You can kind of decide what you want to take out, but also they give you obviously like some kind of things. I would say that all people who went there in some degree thought about what they had like their line class, like parkour or dance or gymnastics, but also about community, how's this frame and what kind of implications come from that.
Yeah. I think we could spend a lot of time trying to describe what Ollerup is, but I think trying to talk about it through your experience and through your story might actually make a little bit more sense. So when you actually first went there, you kind of knew how Ollerup ran with the kind of classes and stuff, but what was a day as a student, what was a normal day for you as a student?
Like I kind of know, I mean, they have this kind of schedule, how it looks like, but then I remember like before when you asked me like, I asked you like what should I expect? And you said, I remember like one line where it was like, expect to sing loads.
Expect to sing loads. Yeah.
And I was like, I thought like kind of you were joking. But actually it was completely honest. I sang loads. Because you have this, when it comes to it starts with this like morning assembly where everybody comes together.
Mhm.
You
What
sing.
time was that at?
It's at 9.
Lucky. When I was a
no,
student.
it's 9:30.
Half past 9. Okay, so 8:30.
30. Sorry.
8:30 is okay.
Yeah, 8:30
in the morning. Right.
And then you have this like you sing, also like a few times like Danish songs, like regularly.
I mean, you are in Denmark. I mean, let's be fair.
I mean, it's totally fine.
It is in Denmark.
It's fine. It's just like you figuring it out how to say it. Like when
Yeah,
you sing
I think the comment on that, because that's another that comment is always sing a lot. And I think that especially when it's not your culture, it does come as like a culture shock. But I think for the Danish, they're like, this is our culture. Kind of deal with it in a way. But I think it's more the fact that you are, in a lot of aspects in Ollerup and Danish culture, is that you're kind of just dropped in the deep end. It's just like, right, run with it.
Yeah.
Do it. So I think it's more the fact that, as you say.
I think it's also like a bit of tradition and also like this community vibe. We're doing it all together. Anyway, then over the day you have like your normal classes, which can be Danish or NGO, intercultural studies. You have also like your sports class. In Ollerup you have it like 4 times a week. So it's like you have the chance to train loads, but it's more to it. It's not just we go there and train and can say, the rest I do it the way I want.
Yeah.
We actually have to participate in classes and all that.
Yeah, there's a kind of agreement of like, this place is cool, but at the same time, you need to integrate with the system. I know a few people who went there who, and also people when I was there as well, like a few times it's just, people go there and don't really get how much you need to do as well. Because interesting thing to note about these schools is that they are so much part of the culture there that the government actually pays quite a lot of the funding. So I think we went on scholarships, but we only paid like a little bit of the total amount that normal students pay.
Yeah, when I heard what the Danish
and
pay,
then
I was like, yo.
Yeah, so the Danish pay a lot more than we had to. But then also that is just that's just 1/3 of the actual price. So the government pays 2/3 of the price for each student. And there's about, I think in one semester there was 180 students in my year, or no, 100 students, and then it went up to 200.
Yeah, actually next year they have like, I think, biggest semester they ever had. It's like, I'm not sure.
Sense.
I don't want to fuck up numbers, but it's like 230, 30 maybe. Very much people.
I think the main point is just like, this place, in a lot of ways, this place doesn't exist in other countries simply because, it costs a lot of taxpayers' money, I guess, to get a thing run like this, but they see the benefit in it, which is why
I think also like because it's like came out of Danish culture, so they appreciate it much more, and other maybe Scandinavian countries know the concept at least, but they don't have as many schools as Denmark.
I think later on we can talk about what the concept, like the starter night, because I don't know if we must have had history lessons.
Yeah, we had it.
I've chatted to
as well, the Grundtvig talk.
Yeah. Oh, Grundtvig, but he's so cool. Anyway, the point is we're getting away from your story. So when you were there, you were obviously doing parkour. I hear it was an interesting year for parkour because there wasn't enough people to make up the course.
Yeah, it was actually tricky because it's like the way this like scholarship, which is super nice, works is it depends that also Danish people are in the line class. It's kind of necessary for it functioning. And we had like one Danish person, the rest were international people, and there were not enough people. It would be like more participants. Like I think like also like many people, they maybe know about all of it, but maybe they don't know about the scholarship. That's me, for example, at first. So we had it together with Tumbling X, which is like gymnastics, but not in the typical way, at least the way, not artistic gymnastics, like we have it mainly in Germany. It's more like, it's much more using the air track and trampolines, and also like fast track a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was like not just parkour for me, but it was also interesting to see like their approach from the gymnastic side, because it's like very different to what we have in parkour, which is much more play based. The other one's a bit more of drilling and like drill it to perfection and then go to the next step when you're ready. In parkour, it makes sense to maybe not progress, like maybe take time for some things, but you choose your way, kind of more free.
Yeah.
So, but in the end, I liked it. But if I would just have just parkour classes, I think I would like it even more.
Yeah, I mean
But
that's kind of what
obviously,
goes without saying. So you're in a parkour line, you're doing a tumbling line. What else? What was your Monday to Friday? Because for example, like I remember that when I was there on Fridays, there was a special day.
we didn't have on Friday a special day. I mean, it was normal class, but you had like Friday was shorter, so you had more of the afternoon. But yeah, we had like on Friday I had like always a class which was like all like not all people, but not normally Danish, and not Danish people were more separated. It was a class where we were together. So it was also interesting to see, and usually there we talked about like some society issues, problems, or topics, and also like discuss about this.
And was that with the international crew, or is that with?
Oh, well, we're actually both together. Like, was a kind of the idea that Danish people and or Scandinavian people and internationals get together in a class.
Yeah, because I think something to mention as well is that Ollerup, I was there like 5 years ago now, and I think that Ollerup is a place that, as you mentioned before, it's like an intense time when you're there, but it is something that constantly strives to change. So that my semester was different to your semester, but also my semester was different to the people who were before me. So yeah, when I was there, there was a lot of the feedback we were giving was it'd be nicer to be more integrated.
Yeah, but we gave actually the same feedback.
Yeah.
Even though we had it already more integrated, but we were still like, yeah, there could be more classes together. And for example, for the upcoming semester, which that they had like at this intercultural study class, and now there's the option for Scandinavian people to say, yeah, we want to join that.
Nice, that's
cool. So you see, from one semester to the next, it's already like changing. I think that's maybe also the spirit about this place, that it's constantly trying to change things, which sometimes makes it also very tricky with communication in that place itself, because things change so much.
Yeah.
But I think also this is what gives it that potential.
No, for sure. And I think knowing the reason why. Well, for me, when I was talking to Jonathan and learned more about why, and this was actually after I left Oliver. But short thing, Jonathan Lindy is the coach there. He's the parkour coach and been there since I think 2012. I may have got that year wrong. Possibly 2013. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it's 2013.
But point is, shout out to Jonathan. He's legend. Coach. But I think to understand why they have such a value of changing with the times, it is to understand why that kind of education system was set up. I did have one question before I wanted to go on to that. Give me one sec. Look at me. What didn't you expect? Or like when you arrived there, was there anything that you mentioned the singing? That was one thing, but is there one thing that sticks out to you? Because there's many aspects to Ollerup. There's like also the fact that you sleep there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like the sleeping arrangements, the food, or like the amount of food. You get food all the time there. Yeah. But was there anything that you went there being like, okay, cool, I was not expecting?
So yeah, definitely. I came to the earliest point which was possible, so I could like get some extra days of training in, and it was the summer. So it was like I think 4 days or 5 days before the semester actually start already there. And there were not many people, only the people who worked there, and like two people from Japan were also already there, which then later with me in the parkour line. But which I noticed there was like just a group of girls. They had like shirts on with like pizza on it.
Yeah.
And they're going around repairing the school and training very hard for the performance. And then I actually learned, yeah, it's like voluntary work they do, and actually the Danish people, like it's a very all of them really want to do it, and it's like more people want to do it than there's space. And I think this was like for me in general, we have like also voluntary work in Germany, but this was like kind of different. I think like the people had a different understanding what it means to do something kind of for the cause.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Visa is, yeah, as you said, a program where old students can stay longer and volunteer, but you also like make you said it, like repair parts of the school, build new things. A lot of the new big stuff in Ollerup is made by Visa. And it's kind of funny, if you wander around Ollerup and you see Visa everywhere, you'll see it absolutely everywhere. It's on all of the buildings. You know that, it's like Visa 2010 or Visa 10. The parkour hall, when you're in in parkour hall in Ollerup, you'll see Visa all over the place because it's these students. And I think you're right that the point of volunteering is different in Denmark to anywhere else.
Yeah, I think it's the
so much stuff happens.
Strong community sense they have. Like it's just like it's like having this team spirit kind of in their head, even though they don't. Maybe also for people they don't know. But it's just like they genuinely have this like, okay, let's figure this together out.
I feel like the word community is kind of thrown about, especially with parkour and also with society. Community is thrown out quite a lot. So it's kind of difficult to get a sense of what you mean by community. And I think also people talk on community and don't fully know what they mean by it. But yeah, with the Danish culture, it is very much, because there's entire sports clubs, entire sports centers, I think, that have been created by voluntary work, where people just come up and volunteer to help. And I think that's really what shapes it. I think that's a good segue to go into like, why is that? Hey, Biko, can you tell me a little bit about why high school was invented and what these situations were? Because you already mentioned his lordship's name.
Yeah, so I had a bit of history class also on that topic. Like that is like Grundvig. He has like
Grundvig.
He had also like a few first names, too much. And he had like this idea of like some alternative school concept, which is like holistic, like which should prepare the students kind of for life, like a school for life, but also like educate them so they can be like useful citizens in a democratic structure. So like also like talking about democracy and like participation, and therefore also doing something voluntary. All those kind of, so it's like you see that like even though they have like concrete subjects they wanted to teach, in the tradition it's also like always been like value based and thinking about the bigger picture, like thinking about things like democracy, community, and how we can like educate people on that. So it's like developing over time.
Yeah,
that's at least the part that I know.
Did you know? So Grundvig was the guy. Grundvig, I think it's.
I think, but I think they don't pronounce it.
They don't pronounce it. They pronounce it slightly different. Sorry, guys. But essentially, he had this concept of a new school. I can go in more in a sec. But I think what's interesting about Ollerup is that Ollerup wasn't invented by this guy necessarily. Ollerup, the gymnastic school was.
It was Niels Book.
Niels Book, a Danish. Yeah. I can't pronounce. I'm so bad.
But I mean,
pronouncing it. But I think Niels Book he hit. But there is another school in Ollerup, the town. Ollerup is a town.
School.
And then there's quite
a few. A music school as well.
Do you know the Lærerskole?
Yeah, it's next to it as well.
There's a teacher school next to Ollerup High School, and that's apparently, again, this isn't like off fact sheet, but that apparently is one of the first schools that high school teachers ever went to learn. So a lot
Really?
of the so a lot of the teachers in Ollerup gymnastics high school studied in the teacher
Oh, I
school.
didn't know that.
And then with the teacher school in that whole area, there's like a fly schooler, which is like for primary school kids, so ages between like 5 and 10 or whatever. And then there's the Gäste school, which is the same type of school but more for people who are between the ages of like 13 and 16, kind of. And then Ollerup is more for people between the ages of like 17 in life.
And now there's also a music school where people like play instruments.
Which is that the Gäste school? Oh,
maybe
you pass it first when you go to Ollerup by the bus.
I mean, I know the after school, but for me it was just like this after school with the younger kids.
But there's now a music school.
Yeah, I think there is.
Yeah, so essentially Ollerup, the town is just a hot spot for that kind of thinking, like alternative way of thinking. But for me, the thing that I think contextualizes that is to understand, and again, I'm paraphrasing Jonathan when he was telling me this on the phone a while ago, but the idea of Ollerup, or at least the high school idea, is it was at a time where Denmark was dealing with a kind of a society shift. It was basically going from a kind of largish empire to kind of a smaller empire, and at this point they needed to find a way to get people to basically build a new nation. Because when you go from something so big to something so small, it's kind of like, okay, who are we? What are we? Are we new? Like, you need a new national identity. So these schools were a way of bringing, and they talk a lot about this, because in Ollerup it's just farmland. In Denmark there's just a lot of farmland, so it's a lot of farmers. So the kind of narrative is it's taking these farmers who are quite big and quite hard, and then able to, by teaching them gymnastics, kind of straighten that up and show them that they have power. But the whole point is like, okay, teaching gymnastics or whatever as a tool to get them thinking about their point of view. What do they think? We need people to have their own sense of consciousness if we want to have a democratic kind of good society. Is basically what it was doing. It was just a way of getting, I
mean, I think that's
building people
the
up.
core of it.
Yeah, of course. And I think with that, it means that's why volunteering and community work is so valued. I think we forget what it's like, because we are in a society that is so much like, okay, it's organized and things like that, but we forget I mean, Germany, actually, to be fair, has also had to do that in recent, the last sort of 50 years, not 50, 60 years, but do you know what I mean? Like, I see that personally living in Germany. It is a society that has spent time looking at itself in a certain perspective that other places haven't. But I think Denmark also within its culture has this idea of, we are a part of a community kind of vibe, and that's why we need to step up and do stuff, as it were.
Yeah, I definitely also think, like, inside Denmark, there's this very strong community. Like, it's just like, I have the feeling that people kind of learn straight away. Obviously, like, when you go to Ollerup, you have like a maybe deeper experience with it, but in general, I had the feeling that Danish people there have just like this very strong feeling for community and helping each other out.
Yes.
At least those that I met, let's say it that way.
I think
I saw Ollerup, not Denmark.
Yeah, that's another thing. Is there is there's something that they would call the Ollerup bubble, and it's designed that way. The reason why they designed Ollerup in the middle of nowhere is simply because, in order to have this kind of community vibe, you need to be not cut off from the rest of the world, but in a way cut off.
Yeah, you kind of put, like, but there was definitely a point when I was Ollerup, I had like basically no idea what's happening outside of Ollerup. I was like, just normally I'm quite interested in what's happening in the world, but at this time I was just like, I have no idea. I'm just like here focusing about what they teach me, also like train loads, meeting people, have loads of chats. So my mind was kind of busy in that bubble.
Yeah, and it is within that bubble that, like, there isn't, I don't know how to put it. But if you go into Ollerup expecting something and wanting a certain thing out of it, you're going to get the opposite out of it. Yeah. In a way, like, it's more of a melting pot. Like, it's an experience rather than you're going there to get this. And I think that
I mean, I think like kind of your perspective shifts a little. You have like a certain idea what you want to get. Like for me, it was like I want to train shitloads, and then I was like, okay, I'll get something else. But it's not that because you get one thing, the other thing is not combinable in some way. You can have both.
So I think we're kind of drifting towards the idea of concept, and because we are talking about parkour, I wanted to ask what was parkour courses like in Ollerup, and how would they? Oh yeah, so how did they essentially use that too? How did Jonathan, my guy, or what did you see him using, or playing, or whatever to project that
I
message?
think at first, I mean, in general, we had like this starting situation where we had like there were like 4 or 5 of us who trained like for 7 to 10 years, and there were like 4 or 5 of us who just started. So it was like he had to manage
Yeah.
both groups in one, and I think he did it quite good. And at first, obviously, we looked a bit at basics, and he introduced us. He has like this concept approach of teaching, not just like, yeah, we're doing this movement, more like we're looking at this concept, look what falls into that concept. And yeah, we started with something he calls landing continuum. So we looked at different kinds of jumps, like how it kind of builds up, like that you like a bounce off, cat leap, crane, free stride, like those who use like basic techniques. And also then at some points, for example, when we went through the technique, looked at vaults, and sometimes we split the group up, gave like the more experienced people different challenges, and then put it back together. Also, in some when we look at creativity, for example, he mixed the groups, and it was more like bouncing off ideas, because also like people who just started there, maybe like there was like a dude who had like who just started, who was a dude from Japan, Tatsu, and this dude he just started. Shout out to you if you did watch, if you watched that. He just started and kind of faster. He was doing and thinking, oh, it was just like, yo, all right. So it's like can very be also people just start can be very inspiring. And for me, what I took out of all of this is like I really like this idea about teaching parkour and like more like in the concept frame that we say, yeah, we look at basics or we look at fear or creativity, or problem solving, and then we have this frame, and I give them people tasks, or I try to, let's say when Corona ends someday, I try to give people tasks, but then not just learning movement, but maybe also have like an idea of what do I want to teach, like maybe teamwork or community, or like maybe also some like more like philosophy concept of parkour, which can be tricky to teach, but also like I think like for appreciation for sports like World's Our Playground, or like Strong to be Useful, like all those things, because I have the feeling those values, they kind of like with the newer generation not disappear, but kind of get more forgotten. Forgotten. Mm, but only for some people. So it's now I'm drifting a little bit off.
No, you're making complete sense. Now I'm just kind of like, because you know me, I have thoughts on everything you just said. I'm just letting you get to.
So I think like it's a good chance like using parkour as a tool to teach people like maybe like a little bit of what I value in parkour and in life, but also give them like a tool to explore it themselves. Like, okay, we have this certain rule set in our community. Yeah, don't use this stairway for jumps. And then, yeah, how can I approach it? Like, what rules make sense and kind of make like individuals who can think for themselves, and in the end, then also train for themselves. So kind of see it more connected to different things, different aspects.
Yeah, I think that
This was now quite much.
it's quite a lot. But what you were mentioning is like, I think Jonathan does do a really good job of um, teaching a
Teaching,
huh?
teaching.
Teaching. Yeah, I think this is possibly the reason why it's difficult to kind of talk about, because it is very conceptual. We're used to talking about parkour. We're not necessarily talking about it. I feel as though, but we're used to teaching parkour in a very kind of like, no, you do this, you do this, you do
Yeah,
this, you
very
do
like
this.
movement, outcome
Movement
focused.
based. And I think not every coach, don't get me wrong, but I think the way in which our language about teaching is like, oh, we do a Kong ball or a thing ball, or is that the right name, or is that not the right name, and things like that. Whereas my point with Jonathan is more, he's able to teach different experience, different ages, different all of it together. And I think it's the reason for that is because, as you say, he's not trying to teach. He's constantly asking, "What is parkour?"
Yeah.
I think that's the question. A lot of like you're constantly asking, "What is parkour? What is the group? What is the people?" And most of the time, I don't know if it's the same for you, but most of the time he would kind of just set up an environment and then take a step back. And that's why the best. Personally, I see it best when if you ever go to the Ollerup Jam. Because if you go to the Ollerup Jam, apart from at the start where he does the start speech and he's like, "Don't do this and don't do that," which I think is hilarious if you know him, because that's not him as well. But he's like, "Don't do this and don't do that," and he has to be that face, right? And then he just melts into the background completely. I don't know if you had a jam when you were there because of Corona, but he just melts into the background. As you say, when you were there before you went there, did you know John?
Or before the jam?
Yeah, no, before you went there as a
student.
As a student, and before I don't know.
I mean, I kind of knew him, but more like from the speech.
Yeah.
And I knew he's kind of organizing that stuff.
But that's the point. Is he doesn't
like the first impression was like, okay, we have this kind of strict rule set here.
Yeah, he comes in with that kind of like, okay, no, I don't.
And he's very good at that, I think. But I think he has like this two sides. He's very good at this like strict face, but he's also like a very funny person.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry.
But also, yeah, I think also like the way he approaches, like you said, you had like justice. There's the space. I talked with him about that over time. Also, like for me, actually, yeah, it changes always from a little bit because you get different people, it's different situation. It definitely got more structured in the 5 years you've been not there, student. So he said like it was more free.
Yeah.
A bit more free. I mean, it's not like now he has like now you do this, do this. There's still like loads of room for exploration and all that. I think he has that still covered, but he has also like some very structured class.
Yeah.
So like when we looked at this landing continuum, or
yeah.
when we looked at bars, and then like kind of start from like traversing through it, then to like doing shoots, then swings.
Yeah.
So there's like some systematic is to it, but also like so it was like creativity class where he was like exactly what you described. He was like, yeah, you have this frame. I don't tell you what you have to do, but you have to do now something with that 4 bars.
Yeah.
And that's the place where you play, or you get the slanted wall and see what you can do.
I think in general, what I'm trying to say is I think Jonathan's very good at kind of, and it's something that I try to do as well, is representing the culture rather than being like putting the culture in his image. If you talk to Jonathan about his experience and what he came up with and what he sees parkour, it's actually very different to sometimes the environment that Ollerup creates naturally in a way because of the different kinds of people coming to Ollerup. But I think that as you say, like it's this, and again, it's this high school idea of the subject is obviously important, but what's more important is the fact that we're doing this together, the fact that we're experiencing it together, because at the end of the day, it's the doing it together that means that we get these different perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, definitely also this different perspective thingy. If we look at it, like I would say, like that even parkour and gymnastic people have like can have stuff in common and be like, yeah, both appreciating like using the environment in their way, but also like their way like looking on rules. I would say that's like quite different because in their class they usually get like there's this station where we practice now, okay, we practice round-offs, and there's this station where we practice just the second half of it. So it's like very kind of strict settings. And with parkour people, it's like you get like kind of like educated or like develops like a sense of questioning rules.
Yeah.
And questioning like ideas. Maybe does it make sense?
I mean, in both of those places, I gotta say though, sorry.
Maybe yeah, I wouldn't say that. There are also like gymnasts who are the complete opposite. There were people like they have the feeling like some of them they really do when we now look at the practical stuff really do their station work, but the other ones who play, and that's also like very fun to watch. We had a class of tumbling eggs where the class was like, yeah, today we're going to play, like Jonathan and the tumbling eggs teacher. They came together and they were like, today we play, and then they built like settings for doing like gate flips, and they were like, okay, we're doing like dive fronts from the ceiling down and loads of different settings, and it was super fun because for for the gymnasts, it was like
So
some of them they could play, but some of them were like, this is too much freedom, kind of.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
I feel like in what I was going to say with that is I think that in Ollerup, let's say in the teachers as well, in the Ollerup teaching staff, they have a very set of, okay, this is what we do, but in all of them mostly, there's also this idea of, yeah, that questioning idea that everything you can play with it. There's the way that we do it, but then there's everything to play with it. And I think that, as you say, yeah, parkour people is a lot more questioning. It's a lot more kind of like, yo, we do it our own way. Whereas gymnastics historically and also in practice is a lot more like, yeah,
That's
it's
the
called
way.
rule-based. It's called rule-based learning, which is a type of learning where it's like, okay, well, we're going to learn how to do this under these rules. And then mostly in gymnastics, it's going to be inside in a gymnastics hall with these rules. Whereas parkour is the concept of learning a flip is like you then want to do it everywhere. So in order to, we are literally the opposite. We need to get a rule and then we break all the rules to get it everywhere. As gymnasts, the way that they get so good at doing double layout backflip is simply because they, not simply, nothing simple, but this idea of the way that they learn it is just like thing. I think we will be talking to a guest speaker at some point about the benefits and cons of those ways of thinking. But I think what I was trying to say was, I remember a point where I was trying to explain to a student, and again, this is what I was, the reason I said the coaching or the teacher team is because the teachers can be sometimes different from the students, and that's also an interesting dynamic that happens every single year. Is that, and I was particularly was an interesting form of student, and I realized that coming out because I was very much like the entire time. And I think that there was another dude gymnast who was also like, nah, gymnastics is the way. And we were training in the spring center, and I was trying to explain the concept of a Russian backflip. And for those who don't know, a Russian backflip is where you go for a backflip, but you drive your elbows up this way rather than up, and then do a backflip. I was showing this to him, and he kind of came over to me, and he was like, "This is wrong." And this kind of like polite was, "Nope, this is wrong." And I was like, "Okay, cool. How is it wrong?" Because I'm like, "Okay, cool. I want to play with this idea." He's like, "Okay, how is it wrong?" He's like, "Your arms go up." Okay, your arms go up because you need to go up. And I was like, "Yeah." And I explained the idea. I was like, "Yeah, but this also does it this way, and it doesn't counter." And he's like, "This is wrong." Like nothing against this dude, I loved him, but he was just like, "This is wrong." And then his coach comes over, right? His coach comes over, and I see it in his eyes. He's looking over, and he's like, Hope. Okay, he's doing a backflip. Kind of no, he doesn't turn. And it was Patrick, and Patrick then looks at me, and I go, "I've got to show you something. It's disgusting." I then do the Russian backflip, and he watches me for a second, goes, "Oh, parkour, that's horrible. Oh, that's really cool though." And then walked away. And this gymnast was just so kind of perplexed at the fact that his coach, who teaches him this way, was just kind of accepting of this wrong way. And I think that's the kind of thing that's for both of us, that was a learning experience to be like, nothing is ever nothing is ever just one way.
Yeah.
And also just to touch on this idea of, you were talking about tumbling X, you turned up and did play one day. One of the games on a Friday, I think it was Fridays. On Fridays when I was there, we got to do a subject that we wanted to do. And I think just possibly because I get freaked out hanging around non-parkour people, I just decided to do the courses that Jonathan did, right? Just because I was like, cool, I can annoy him, right? So he did ball games. And I was like, cool, ball games. I love to juggle in games, whatever. But the whole, did you ever do his ball games course?
No, I knew he was teaching volleyball when I was there.
Oh yeah, if it was volleyball.
But yeah, no, I had martial arts and parkour. I took more parkour classes than I had because I was like, for the second period of the semester, I was like, one day more parkour, and it's the longest class actually. This like additional class which you don't have in the line.
Yeah.
It's longer than the other class, which is but it was great.
So yeah, I think my point with this game is the fact that it was, the whole concept of it is we're going to play football, for example, and then not one day, but okay, that was a good game, 10 minutes of playing, let's take the ball and turn it into a frisbee. Go. And we were all like, okay, how does that change things? And then we learned by doing how it changed the dynamic. And then we're like, okay, what if we played with a frisbee American football technique? And I think at one week we even played Quidditch. And honestly, Quidditch was one of the best games for me. I loved it. But I think the point is that I'm trying to make is with Jonathan's and with Ollerup's way of teaching is it is all about questioning. And I think it is all about turning that part of your brain, not just questioning for the sake of being skeptical and a rebel and just for the sake of question, but questioning in a way of like, what is this helping? How do I do this?
Yeah, kind of questioning with sense. And I also think like those like having chats, I think like very much, even though you have like classes, like there was very often moments where I just like had chats with people or teachers about ideas and what they thought about it. I mean, from all the teachers, it definitely happened most with Jonathan, but it's just like this questioning certain ideas. Doesn't have to be necessarily just parkour related. It can be also like maybe something political. So it's not just like we're only talking parkour here. We're also like looking into society and things you see there, and like kind of try to connect those two things, like the movement side and society. At least
for sure.
for me.
I think also, I mean, this is something that I am very lucky. I feel very lucky to be able to talk to Jonathan regularly because he's always the person that flips it on its head for me. And I think that's one of the things is like no matter how much, and this is what I learned in Ollerup and in the Ollerup experience, is like no matter how much you believe in this idea, in the idea of the way things are, that is just your tiny peek hole into a larger community. And I can go on for hours about things with the community, but in general, the high school experience has really taught me and really shown to me the fancy word malleability, like the ability to change communities. Especially we're in a society, as you say, where everything's fixed. There's a way you do this and you go there. Whereas, and as you say, as we say in Denmark, everything kind of changes. And I think that it's part of that dance, as it were, that you learn from it. So I think my point with this is more, in order to have that dance, you need to find out what your original opinion is. In a way, do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like that's what it teaches.
Yeah, you definitely need to have like put some thought into that why I'm doing this. I also think like that this, let's say, Danish community vibe, and or what Ollerup is trying to teach you, like to ask why I'm doing this, like looking for the value in it and then approach it. I think it's also like something we could nourish more here, like that it happens more here. I mean, it's everywhere. It's nice to have, but that now to make it like, because we're in the Halle.
Yeah.
I think it's also like, because some of those ideas maybe at first doesn't seem like, oh man, why are we doing this? But when you actually go into it, you like start to appreciate it. I had things where I was like, I'm not sure if,
trust me,
why should I do this? Like there were those days, and yeah, I handled him differently. But sometimes I decided, yeah, okay, I jump into this unknown thing, and it turned out okay, and sometimes even better.
And I think
actually good.
If I can say, I think the reason, and I wonder if Jonathan would agree with it, if I'm honest, but I think the reason why parkour people fit so well in Ollerup is because we are, in a way, how do I put this? We are the questioning side of things. Like we are the character. We are a community that more often than not came up out of just being on the street, being out there, just doing it, having to be, not having, now it's kind of different, but being the outsider. It wasn't normal or cool to be on a wall when I was like 14, no, I was 15, 16, 17. It was still kind of like, it's weird, what is he doing kind of vibe. So in order to be able to do that, there had to be a kind of questioning internally about what it is that you do and what it isn't, and kind of like standing up for what it is. Maybe it's not the right thing. Do you know what I mean? We talked about this with Julius the other week, talking about individuality, but I think within every parkour person, there is a sense of individuality. And I think that when we go to Ollerup, depending on your demeanor, sometimes you rally up against what Ollerup's telling you to do, because it is very much like a school.
Yeah, I think.
But it's that really opinion that we already have, do you know what I mean? Whereas the gymnasts, for example, sorry, just to finish my point, the gymnasts, for example, some of them, as you say, some of them are quite open, and then but some of them can be like this. And I think that's the yin and yang, I guess you can call it. Because I was definitely on the opinionated, angry parkour side, and since then, all I've been doing is working on trying to become more zen, as it were. After reflecting on how I was in that space, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, that was just the thing why I think parkour people could work really well in that space if they understood that part of their role is to be challenged.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think it's really what you expect. Like, if you just go there and be like, I train all day, this is just like my holiday to train every day and do nothing else, maybe hang with the guys, but nothing more, then you probably get disappointed. And I've heard also stories about people who just like, they were just there for training, and you can do that, but I'm not sure if it always works out, because they actually want to give you more than training. They want to give you this idea of like this like high school spirit, Grundvi way of thinking, like that you can actually learn in different ways, that there's not just like one way, and also like in society there's not just like one way to handle certain issues, like, and also like question democracy in some
Yeah,
degree.
and sorry.
Yeah, it was.
I think for me as well, the point that one of the things I was going to say before was just this idea of it's not enough just to have that opinion. That's just the personal exploration, as it were. But as a society, as the group, it's about creating spaces where everyone can say their opinion in kind of not a safe space, but like in a space where we can, an open space where we can discuss it, and then that necessarily leads to more open understanding and exploration ideas. Obviously, that's kind of easy in theory and difficult in practice, but I think Ollerup is a place, how do I put it, that doesn't necessarily get it right every time.
Yeah,
But they definitely strive to
try.
get it better next time. And I think it's that kind of understanding within the process that society doesn't necessarily have these days. It's just kind of like a kind of everything is kind of final. You go to school and you only have one chance to do school, and then that's it. And then you go to uni and you have one chance to do uni, you know, or not once, but you know, you pass this test. Whereas that's what Ollerup is different. That's what high school is different. It has, you can go in there and not get better at the subject that you went in to do, and you would still have got everything that they wanted. Like, it's not about the material, it's about how you come out thinking.
Yeah, but I also think it's kind of what you want to make out of it.
Of course, yeah.
I think it's, you have this both of it to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like this. I would say it's really, you kind of can choose what you take out of it, but you get anyway something you didn't expect. It's like both. You, on the one hand, like I could train parkour and I could focus on that, but I got like this like idea of like high school and different way of approaching teaching or seeing learning in a different perspective. So, and all this community thing. So in the end, I got something which I didn't expect to that degree.
Yeah.
But I appreciate now that I had it. There also were like things where I thought, yeah, maybe not my favorite thing, like dressing up.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still like something to experience. And yeah,
I think one of the there's a phrase that Trina, excuse me, Trina, who's one of the coaches at Ollerup, a dance coach, and I spent a lot of time at her house, mainly because me and her son Storm were like bros. But one of the things she said to me was this phrase of you can't fully learn from something unless you've experienced it. And that is something that it's even surprised me at how many times that's come back. I mean, specifically when I think I know I'm talking about something and then I do it and I'm like, actually, that's completely different. Do you know what I mean? And I think that piece of advice is you can't fully learn from something. Like, you can't really get it unless you've experienced. I think that's what Ollerup is. We can talk about the idea of Ollerup forever.
Yeah, it's just.
But unless you go there, and as you say, like, yeah, you go there and you experience what it's actually like, and it's not necessarily, what I mean by that is, like, if you go there thinking it's going to be great, it'll be great, but it's like it tests you in a way. Do you know what I mean? There is a sense of democracy. You do get this sense of like you are there for a reason and for a purpose, which is why you tend to, like, for me at least, I was like constantly talking about ideas, trying to see how things work, constantly trying to but yeah, sorry, my point is that in a way it shows you where you fit in the community.
Yeah, and it also, like, I think also because you get things, at least let's say you the normal parkour person who goes there with the idea I wouldn't train very much, then you get like something you didn't expect it, and then it's also like the way how you act to it. There was like days where I was like, yeah, I'm going to try this thing out, but there were also days where I just was ranting. I was like, I don't need to do that now. I want to do something else.
And I think what's cool about, okay, let me say, I know for a fact that Jonathan had people like that before me. I know for a fact that he had people like that when I was there. This guy. I know for a fact that it had people like that after, and I think that's what's cool about Ollerup is there is space for that. That is part of the experience. And basically, yeah, it's just when you're there, you realize that a lot of the time you could have just chilled and not dealt with it in a way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's always like a different way.
But it is a safe space where you can go in and be raging and think this, or you can go in and just have the time. Most of the times it's like this, and then you come out of it and you're like, oh, that was the point. The point was to have that experience in a way.
Yeah, I think also that you have this many different characters in it,
Yeah.
like that. It's just like this. The outcome is something unexpected. Like there's so much memories in this little experience because you have those many different people, and there were like some people I probably wouldn't met otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Like just because I'm not in that circle. Like
so, I've just realized that we've just lamented about how sick Ollerup is for a short minute. I want to ask a question that I am asking quite a lot of the time myself, but it's like, so not everyone in the world can go to Ollerup. We're fairly privileged that we can go to Ollerup and we can do that, but I don't necessarily think that everyone in the world needs to go to Ollerup to get the message and the vibe of Ollerup. Do you know what I mean? In the kind of theory. And I specifically think that in terms of my views on like parkour community, I think you're right in the sense that, let's say, some of the values, and you can argue from the OG, has not necessarily come over to the new. I disagree with that to an extent, but let's not get into that because I do think that they're just personified differently. But I think that one of the things that parkour people specifically could benefit from going to a place like Ollerup is this understanding of community and and I was wondering if you wanted to say anything about, like, by going there, do you have a slightly different viewpoint on your role either in community in terms of parkour, local, global, or like how did it affect your way of seeing what was around you within the parkour sense?
so, I would say because this community, this topic, it's always in some way around. Like you talk about certain aspects of it or about leadership, and when I'm now back here, it kind of teaches you that you can have influence on it, and it's not like, okay, we're in this society and there's this one type of community. It's more like you have like different ways and you can change things, and also that, like, very much like if you have a strong community, you get like people who really want to participate in it by itself. Like
Yeah.
it's like a self-producing thing, like that. Sometimes like actually like finding values and something where we agree on and which connects us makes this like strong base. And then you have the community, and for example that they have this thing called visa that people actually say, yeah, we want to stay now. Okay, we have holidays, we could just like chill hard, but no, we want to stay and we want to do something for this place because we appreciate what it gave to us. I think this is something which is definitely also existing somewhere else. But I think it's like it kind of shows you what is possible with a strong community.
Yeah. No, yeah, I get that sense as well, and I think it also when you on a wider level, it's talking about that community thing, but from a coach's point of view, because we're both coaches, it changed my perspective of how that idea is in practice. Do you know what I mean? When we teach people, how do you teach people to get that? And I think it's about that idea of leadership. How do you teach leaders? And the way in which Jonathan puts it is we are there to create independent practitioners. This idea that a coach's responsibility isn't necessarily to teach the person every single move. It's for them to be able to go out and train authentic parkour, as it were, by themselves without the need of a coach. And I think that in turn, if you do that right, that turns into a constantly going process, if you know what I mean. Because like, yeah, that person will go away, but then because you were part of their parkour story, if you've done it right necessarily, they'll come back and they're in the culture, and then you see them all the time. And then I think that's the other perspective is once they are that independent level, then they are part of the community as a whole. Yeah, your job as a coach is to be like, this is parkour in my work context, or let's say in my vision, but it's getting them to a point where they can be part of the community and then explore and also push it and put it in themselves. And I think that is something, that aspect, if I'm very honest, I was lucky enough to have quite a lot of that kind of thinking in the coaches that taught me parkour and the community that I was part of. Whether they realized that's what they were doing or not, I'm not sure, but there was a lot of that kind of energy. But yeah, like it is something that I think with parkour coaches generally there's a lot of other sports that we look at to kind of how do we teach our sport, and gymnastics is one that physically is similar to us. There's also other sports that are physically similar to us, but as you noted, the culture is slightly different. It's very different. And I think that the more we get educated as a community in this understanding of community is something that you can be part of and influence. One of the things that Jonathan told me when I was there, he gave me a book on a short introduction to education, and it's that book that made me realize how to put it, how brand new education is, and how we are all going through universities and school being like that's the way it is. But if you looked at us 100 years ago, we were educating completely differently.
Yeah, it's still like something which is,
so we can get involved with it. And I think my point with the parkour idea, and I'm chatting a little bit about it, but is that if more parkour people get this idea of how much we can actually change things, and we can have a sense of that we can change it, we can be a part of that community, and we as parkour people talked about these similar structures, we would be able to unite a little bit more. Do you know what I mean? We'd be able to talk about these things, talk about education, talk about how things are different, isn't, and I don't really know. I kind of ranted on that one.
yeah, I really think.
Help me find my point.
Yeah, so for me, you said you had the way people who taught you in the beginning really gave you all that already in some way.
I think the idea that it is all about community.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you only have you and the people who are around you. In a way.
And I think, like, for example, when I started, it was I didn't have like actual coach in that sense. I had more like people who trained longer than me and showed me a bit.
Yeah.
And then over time, I got more independent with my training, and then but through that independence, I also interact more with the people and train more with them. And before Ollerup, I really was like, when I was teaching parkour classes, like really focused about the movement outcome, more like I want to teach you how to jump kind of approach. And Ollerup really changed this thing that it showed me that parkour is like a tool which can bring so much more, which you can do so much more with it. Than, of course, you can learn how to do nice jumps and all that, but you can also like teach like teamwork and like different perspectives. It's like, for me, it's now more like a tool. I have like something I want to teach, and parkour is like the frame where I'm like feeling good doing it.
Yeah, that idea is actually something that I would like to shout out one of my guys, Chris Grant. Anyone who's interested, Chris Grant, Christopher Grant was OG guy from Glasgow who set up the community, not the community, but set up Glasgow Parkour Coaching, which was a company that did organize a lot of jams, organize a lot of classes, and it was a lot of people's first tastes of parkour in Glasgow. But he not recently, but over the years, he transitioned from, let's say, parkour based. He still does parkour and trains and is highly involved. But he moved more onto youth work. And I watched an interview with him and John Hall from Edinburgh talking about what he does and stuff. And it was in that interview that he says similar things, in the sense that he thinks that he uses parkour to do youth work. And essentially, if you think about it, it's a similar idea. It's about being part of the community and being together in friendship and
the same approach.
Similar approach. And he uses parkour as a tool to do that. And when I look at the way in which he teaches, because that's the way in which I learned parkour, I learned that kind of like as part of it. I kind of took for granted that was part of it, but that was something that he valued, and that's what came out of his teaching, was more the society kind of, or the cultural aspect is almost more important in a way. And I think that it is out there in the community, is my point. Is just kind of this idea is like, I think a lot of parkour coaches, if I can be, not everyone, but I think a lot of parkour coaches, for me, the most that I felt, what they're trying to do is they're trying to communicate this feeling of, parkour is interesting and different because it frees you up, it gives you freedom, it can do this, that, and that. And then when we sit down and teach it, it's like, okay, we're going to drill this jump. And I get the whole.
It's like tricky to get both together, but I think it's very much that I have the feeling all the coaches really want to bring this emotion along,
Yes,
which comes in this spark we have.
It's this it's this idea. It's more of a feeling, and that's why.
And that's why it's so hard to actually give it, because like kind of this feeling gets out of doing it.
Yeah.
But also, in order to do it, you have to practice it, and there's like it's tricky. Like let the people not drill too much. Give them also time to explore, because I think only the combination of both makes it. Because when we think at one point, if we think how we started training, then we had obviously people who showed us stuff, but also like explore stuff by ourselves. And I think to become a practitioner in the end, you need both.
Of course.
And yeah, it's nice when people come here to classes and train in the class, but I think they start to go actually deep into the culture, and they decide like, yeah, okay, I'm going to be out with my friends or go in here or not for class, just to do my own thing. I think like both is necessary.
Yeah. I think my point was more about no, you're right, and it is that kind of like doing it because you want to. But I think this idea of to understand parkour is to understand what it's like in the mind of a trainer, or not a trainer, a practitioner of parkour. Let's say this independent practitioner. It's not that you know anymore. It's just that you know that you're constantly going to be at class. In a way, do you know what I mean? You're constantly trying to be like, okay, cool. The mind of a parkour person is simply, how do I always test myself? How do I always get better and do things? Now, I think that the kind of parallels I was trying to make about teaching technique, whereas teaching conceptual stuff, was just the idea that we actually teach conceptual stuff to each other anyway. We just do it in the community when we are talking about, hey, I'm scared of this, and you're like, oh, I was scared of this. And there is a kind of teaching pedagogy, or there is a way of, in our culture, we do teach, but it's not. It's in it, and it's also kind of from an individual perspective. And I think what Ollerup teaches you or shows you is that you can still have this individual perspective and still be in it, as well as kind of being able to take a step out and be like, is this what's happening? And I think that's why the idea of teaching young leaders and teaching concepts necessarily more than just technique is this idea of, as you say, is giving them the tools and the understanding, not just being like, oh, this is my thought, but to be like, okay, this is my thought, this is Biko's thought. There are two conflicting ideas. Now I've got one of two choices. Do I say that Biko's talking crap and I disagree with him and that's not parkour, bro, this is parkour, or that's, do you know what I mean? Or do I go, cool, we are two independent practitioners of a sport. You can have your opinion, I can have my opinion. They still are kind of within the culture of parkour. Interesting.
And that's why I think like this conceptual approach is better, because I mean, obviously technique is important, but
of course,
if you get like this conceptual, like getting a concept in some way, like let's say you understand fear better, or you have like you got a better understanding how you want to develop creativity, then yet in the long term it's much more useful, because out of it you get the technique also out of it if you start to explore different things. So it's like, I think you can, if you give a good frame, it's for the student much more useful than just having, for example, let's say you teach somebody a pre, and he became, because you teach them loads of tech, he became very good at, or she became very good at doing the pre. But then when you be like, yeah, now do something by your own, they'll be like, but yeah, what should I do? Because they never had this like concept that, okay, I'm not just having this jump, more like, okay, how do I solve the problem? For example,
which is as much as I agree that, like, trust me, the tech is very important, but it also, I think we also conceptual teach ourselves. That was a very bad English phrase, but I think the point is when we go out and train, yes, there's some element of we're going to do this technique, but a lot of it is like, why are we doing that jump? It's because it scares us. We are practicing our mental. And yeah, I guess that to bring it kind of back to Ollerup is, I think that's what it, in a lot of ways, that's what it does, is it allows you to see your experience within the system and then also take a step back and be like, oh, that is the parkour experience in a way. Like, oh, okay, for me at least, it was this way of looking at it and being like, oh, okay, what I think is parkour and what I want to do is parkour, and it still kind of is this, but within the community, there's also other elements that are not necessarily against what I'm doing, and they might not necessarily be related, but they're still together in parkour, and it's about creating environments where those two can talk to each other. Do you know what I mean? And that's why conceptual learning ties in with this idea of, in order to fully learn from something, you need to experience it. Because if I could come up to you and be like, yo, it's scary to do a jump at height, and you can be like, cool. But it's only until you stand up there and you feel the difference that you can then learn, okay, that's why it's scary. It's not just a thing in my head. Do you know what I mean? I've seen it all the time. You tell kids, oh, it's scary to go up there. And like, no, I couldn't do this. Let's go and do it. And then they climb up to the top of the bar setup, and they're just like, I can't stand up. And it's like, yeah, because fear is a point, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can tell them that. However, if I say, go find something that you're scared of, they have, as you say, a framework to then explore their own ways of contextualizing it. Whereas if you just, and that's my critique, is if you just teach this one drill, they can do jumps forever, but they might not, as you say, be able to deal with fear or competition. Or again, that's another concept that I think is very big in the parkour world, that I think a lot of people could benefit from, is us talking about not competition in the sense of competitions, but more kind of like, how do we view ourselves against other people?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How is it okay to have a kind of semi-competitive jump vibe with your friend, which is totally okay, but then how does that apply to new people that you meet? Do you still do that? I don't know. That's a deep conversation I'm sure we'll have. But do you know what I mean? This kind of like,
I think it's also like a very individual thing. I think for some people it's exactly what they need, and for others it's the worst thing which could happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think again through discussion, that's where those stories come out. Do you know what I mean? I don't think people are necessary. I think a lot of the time people feel that their story is unique, and in a way it is, but it's also nice to hear from somebody else who shares in your community. Oh yeah, you know what, I was worried about this, or yeah, that scared me once as well. Because I've had the benefit of, and the privilege to be a lot of times surrounded by, let's say, parkour athletes, like Johnston and Robbie and like Pete McKee, and can name a few people. But the point is just like, I hear their talks, and they all have fears. They're all scared of stuff. When you, like, you know what I mean? We go through the same experience. They're not any different from us. And I think that's a thing that, in terms of a younger community, let's talk about 13, 14, people who are just viewing parkour on YouTube and watching these athletes, because we see the highest level of their ability on screen, we don't necessarily realize that they also fail at stuff. And I think that that's a point, like, obviously us as parkour people who've been doing it for years kind of know that, but only because we went through our own personal experience, and we still battle those demons in our head. Whereas if we can talk to our young'uns, our young people, to be like, yo, are you comparing, like, do you know what I mean? I know that I have that. Are you scared of this jump? Yes, this jump is only this big, but you know what? I'm the same amount of afraid of my jump. Mine's just a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Fear is the same thing. So let's talk about how we get over fear, or do you know what I mean? That's the way.
I mean, we all been there at those jumps which are this far. Like, there's like, we all have, probably all of us have this memory of this, like when you just started and like things were just like fucking scared of, and
not just with the technique, but also like just standing on a wall when people are watching,
and also like being watched always, like especially in the beginning when you feel like, now I have like people who look at how I do.
Yeah.
And I think like this, like kind of teaching people like not being over competitive, even though it always happens to some degree, that you, of course, you see what other people do, but the thing is like how you act on it.
Yeah.
If you decide, I'm just going to, there are some people better at this, but let's say, okay, there are these parkour athletes who are like, maybe they're super good at all those different techniques, and you say, yeah, they're perfect at that, but maybe there's other aspect of life which is maybe not parkour related. That's not their strong side, and then they would look at you and be like, yo, this is something what I would be better, like to be better at.
I think the metaphor that we've just kind of come up with, or at least the thing that just came to me, is this idea of like, so if normal, this is a bad metaphor, but if normal school, because I'm trying to explain the answer, is like what does the school of life mean, right? If a normal school is there to teach you how to physically do the jump, right? The mechanics of jumping with your feet. What Ollerup or what high school is there to do is help you to teach you experience.
And also teach you why, I would say.
Yeah, but the experience, the jump, but it's also the experience around it. If you're doing the jump, yes, you know how to do the jump, but the Ollerup or the high school, experience can help you, at least the tools to talk to yourself and be like, okay, how am I feeling? How do I feel with fear? What is the other people watching me? Kind of contextualizing the physical. Do you know what I mean? I think that's why they balance out, because as you just said, like there is always another element that you might not know, and I think that's what more often than not, it's the mental side of parkour that stops you from doing the jump in a way.
Yeah.
And it's how you talk to yourself. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still exploring a way to describe that, but I think, would you agree with that? This idea that if a normal school teaches you like the knowledge, Ollerup contextualize the I don't know. Damn.
But I definitely think a normal school would teach just like let's say the mechanics of it, like the jump itself, and all of going to say, okay, we have this jump, but start to ask you like questions like, why do you want to do that jump? What do you feel when you do it? Like looks kind of like with the normal school looks inside, like what's happening in the jump, and all of is asking, okay, what's also happening around.
And the school would teach you, okay, you just did that jump, cool. Whereas Ollerup will be like, okay, do that jump, okay, you've done it. How did that feel? Did you do it? Okay, how you do it again? How did you feel about it? Remember what you had last time? Do you know what I mean? I really feel is for parkour coaches, let it put it this way, all of this kind of like inspiration, or not necessarily inspiration, but half the time it's just building up somebody's confidence, isn't it? Half the time it's knowing how to talk to them to build up their confidence, and it's not necessarily the jump that's big or whatever. It's simply the how to talk to them on a personal level, and I really think that's what Ollerup in some ways teaches you how to do, is it puts you in situations where you are forced to talk to the person and talk to the level and meet people who are completely different to you, and not just
all kinds of people.
All kinds of people. Do you know, it's all kinds of people. So I think that's, for me, a kind of summary of Ollerup in a way. If
I think, yeah,
not a summary, but do you know what I mean?
Like, also, like all those different people you meet. I think also the aspect that you have the opportunity, at least when you go to Ollerup, to meet people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And even though like people who like, I speak now for parkour people, even though I have practitioners who do also practice parkour, because we are from different places, we experience like our experience with it. It's different. For example, I had this like Ben, one friend, he's from Ireland, and he was like, yeah, like a place like this, like a nice gym, in Ireland, there's not.
Yeah.
And then he was like, and then we see like this, all those like little differences, or like parkour in Mexico is also like another thing. Like it's all there, like things are certain things are same, but other aspects they're like completely different. And I think like this like exchange of experience, which makes all of as experience so valuable.
And I think also by meeting these people, it makes it one step closer or more possible for you. You can meet somebody who's like also a parkour person, been training for you, but they've got like one step more, but simply knowing them gives you the tools to be like, okay, cool, how do I do that in my space, in my society? And I think that's the thing as well. And I have such a passion for all art, because I really feel as though it doesn't matter if you do parkour or not, it will help you. If you see a change that you want to make in the world, it will give you the language to talk about it. Yeah. Because I really feel as though a lot of the things that, let's just take, I don't know, Ben. I think I met him once actually. An example of, let's say you've got a parkour place and you don't have a gym. That has to do with the fact that people who've got money and a gym don't see the value in these kids just jumping on walls, right? So imagine a place where we can, as a community, we talk to our young people about fear, about teamwork, about leadership, about stuff that they themselves start to get an idea of, okay, parkour is this for me. So when I know this is a bit of a weird dream, but this idea of like a group of young kids are stopped on a wall. And this person, oh, get down from there, you shouldn't do that. And then they turn around and go, actually, this helps me with my risk assessment. It makes me more confident, and it helps me work with my team. Do you know what I mean? And lists off a whole bunch of benefits of what we do. Whereas if I'm honest, when I was that age on that thing, I was just a bit of a moody teenager. So when people told me to get off of that, I'd be like, yo, nah, do you know what I mean? I'd still engage with them mentally, but I'd be arguing with them rather than being like, okay, cool, here are the benefits. And I think the more that we take that language and the more that we can openly talk about the benefits of what parkour gave us and stuff like that, the more that we can engage with the community around us and be like, look, we're not just jumping on a wall and dangerous. Yes, we're doing dangerous things, but look at the way that we risk assess, look at the way that our communities work, look how we interact with young people and give them tools to be able to make risky decisions for themselves. That is when you are more likely to find people and connect with people who who also believe that, and also potentially just give you money or to give you resources a bit more. And I think that, I'm not saying that's the answer, but I think that that's what Ollerup in some sense can give you. As you said, sorry, you mentioned to me when you arrived this idea of seeing that happen, seeing that process. The idea of it is cool, but to be in a system like Ollerup allows you to see how that works.
Yeah, it's just like, again, it comes back to community.
Yeah.
Like, but and that's like, there are definitely some countries where the community is still very small and it's growing, and I think like there can come so much good out of it if just like, I think Oliver really teaches people like you can start projects by yourself and you don't always need to have like this big thing first. You can start small and like develop it and get like the community to support you or like interact with the community and build it from the ground up and not be like, oh, I'm missing investors, I'm missing this, I'm missing that.
I think also, if I'm honest, it kind of it's given me a lot of confidence when I've sat there and been like, I'm not sure if what I'm doing is right. If you're doing a project or something and you're like, you know what, oh, I'm not sure. It also addresses those kinds of insecurity, not insecurities, but those kinds of questions. Those kind of like, am I big enough, or am I good enough to do this, or am I this, that, or the next thing for this project? Every project is like that. Yeah. Every CEO of every single massive company, no matter big or small, also has, or business people, whatever, also have those moments of like, I don't know about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what it also does, is it contextualizes the human experience in a way. Like, it allows you to look and be like, okay, I'm nervous. Why is that? And not fall into that hole of like, oh, I'm bad, I shouldn't be doing it. I mean, like, there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. I'm nervous because of that. Or do you know what I mean?
It kind of teaches you like self-reflection.
Self-reflection, for sure. And also reflection on a kind of community level as well, to be able to look at the other person and be like, okay.
I think like, because just the questions they kind of ask you there, you get forced to think about this, even if you don't want. Okay, if you really don't want, you can actually not think about it. But if you're like interested in it, then you're going to think about it, and then you notice like, yeah, it's a tricky thing sometimes, but like that community and values, just something which has like this strong influence on what we do, and that we can, it's also like, as I said before, such a tool what we can use to build up these projects or to find like-minded people and do it with them together.
And I think, yeah, no, for sure. I think we are coming up to 5 minutes to 6 over here.
How long did we now talk?
We've talked for just about an hour and 25 minutes, which is a hell of a lot shorter than we normally talk. So basically, yes, we've talked a lot about Ollerup, and we've talked a lot about the idea that kind of underpins it, which is this idea of building up communities, and why is it important to talk about community structures and the benefits of doing that. I want to kind of come around to the point of like, so you, now that you're back, and now that you're here, I would say teaching, but we're not teaching at the moment. But now that you're back, what are the things that you would like to, not necessarily here, but just in general, promote and push, or does it give you more confidence in certain things?
So it's like many things. Was it like, so like teaching wise, I would like to try to teach more than just movement when I teach parkour again at some point. Also, like, I would, now I'm speaking especially for the Hamburg community because that's the community I'm in, but I would like to get the community even stronger, like also like maybe use the Halle to not just, as we do already, like when it's possible again, do like community meetings outside where people come together and train, having like jam sessions, also like pushing on projects. And yeah, I just really want to like nourish our community, make it stronger, and also think Ollerup is just like good place for people. If you're into parkour, it's a good place to go. It's also like if you're into community or NGOs, or have like idea of like a project you want to do, you can, this experience can connect you to the right people or like give you the right tools.
Just tells you about it. Before I went to Ollerup, I really didn't know how much NGOs did, and then I went to NGOs, and I went to the Ollerup and found out a whole bunch about, not good and bad, about how these places
there's like
work.
I mean, then not every NGO is like a good one. There's like, no, let's don't like make it too big, but Olympia is like it. You can discuss if it's good or
The
bad.
Olympics is an interesting
In my
one.
opinion, it's a tricky one. Like the things they do, and not just with parkour and fig, like overall issue, like also like Paralympics, and there are like loads of things. But I think it would now maybe be a bit too much for now. But like there's just like so many different ways to approach things. I think that just what it shows, like with all the different NGOs, it's really like how do you see things and how do you want to tackle those things if you have like a pure, I don't know, MBA business approach, or if you like just experience the culture, or maybe you have a bit of both. I think like it's always like it's never just this one way, and Ollerup just gives you the chance to kind of find your own way, but also learning a bit from all the other ways. Sounds a big, but
no, I know what you mean. I would say it from a point of view of Ollerup. Parkour is a whole thing about finding your own way, and I think that on the parkour story, we have found our own way, in the sense that we've just turned up, been ourselves, and done it. And I think what Ollerup has kind of showed me, or turned my head more towards, is like, yes, you've come up and done it yourself, but there might also be other stories, other people that have done a similar thing just from a different sport, or think the same as you and done a different thing.
Also like connecting with people.
Yeah.
Like I think like when you go there, you just meet so many people and you get like different ideas. For example, when I was in Ollerup, there's this dude he's still studying there now, Oscar, who's from Mexico, and he has a parkour academy there. Like basically also plays, and it's very interesting because they have like also like Corona and all that, and loads like the way they approach and we approach. It's like just interesting to hear like different perspectives. And
yeah, and that's the idea, is like when you come, let's say Oscar, I don't know Oscar, but yeah, for me in Scotland, like before I'd left Scotland, I was like, this is parkour. What I see in front of me is what parkour is. And then I went to Australia and I was like, I see the similarities, but there's also a kind of difference. That's interesting. And then I came to Denmark, and then I had this kind of like, boom, I had like a triangle effect where I was like, okay, that's parkour in Scotland, that's parkour in Australia. There's similarities here, but there's also similarities here, but then there's differences. And it kind of, the more communities I went to, the more I realized that actually there isn't one idea of what parkour is. There's in some places similar, but there's also different aspects. Some might be, there's also different flavors of parkour, you can say. And I think that, Ollerup gives you the tools to kind of be able to see those flavors and understand it, and also realize.
Just give you also this like strong network of people. Like you just not meet so many people from different places, and you have the experience to experience different cultures, and in the end you take something out of it, and in some way it's going to influence you. And I think just something which is just a great place.
I think at the end of the day, as we said before, Ollerup isn't really a place that you can go into knowing what you're going to get out of it. You go in there, you have your experience,
and you get it,
and you'll come out of it, and then it's after that. You'll think that you learned so much when you were there, and it's only really after you're there do you come out of it and go, wow, yeah.
And when you leave the bubble and see the normal world.
Leave the bubble and suddenly you're back in life, and you're like, oh, I actually kind of miss waking up at 7 in the morning every day a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Even though at the time I was like, I hate this. So, but yeah, I think famous last words from me, because I said this last time and we carried on to talk with. No, but I said with Julius, I said this last time. We're coming up to the end now and talk for another half an hour.
Okay then. We go on now.
No, we don't go on. We do go on, but we're going to try and bring it to a close. I guess. See, I have this idea in my head, but I can't quite say it out loud. But it's all right. I'm personally. Because we were talking about how does this come back to the Halle, and I think personally for me it will be interesting to have somebody else who has been through that experience but has their own thoughts on how to do stuff in a way, because I think for me this way of thinking has completely shifted the direction of me of how I think about parkour in general. Like you're now reading The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is a book that I read. And if you haven't heard, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed is written by a Brazilian educationalist Paulo Ferreira, and he was pretty revolutionary at the time. He got exiled because of this book, but in a way it talks about educating a group of people that have no self-worth, have nothing, and how to do it. So a lot of the philosophies in this book I see in the high school. Well, yeah, in the high school experience, but also in some ways in parkour. Do you know what I mean? But I think my point is it'll be interesting to have somebody there who gets my idea, sees the gets the source idea, but also sees how I take it, and be able to challenge me on these things, but also this idea of like, yeah, we can talk about it in more detail, because a lot of the times, as you've just heard from us talking an hour and a half about it, a lot of it comes into not wishy-washy, but quite grey, because it is like it's an experience. So much. This, but it'll be fun to, as a test for me, to really know if maybe I've been chatting this and actually the way that I'm doing it isn't how it works. So, but yeah, for me, it'll just be interesting to have somebody else, and then also shout out to Jens. He's not here. But Jens has also, he's one of our young guys, 17, and he's now also signed up to go to Ollerup. And even then, when he comes back, it will be a continuous kind of development, and that's how I've always seen it.
Also, just nice to see all those people just going to this place, and like they have already like this nice idea what it could be, and then they go there and they'll be like, oh, okay, this was even more than I thought.
When you go back for the first time after being a student,
I'm so curious how it's going to feel.
I guess to kind of end it off, I'm looking forward to have somebody else who's also been in this vibe. I'm looking forward to seeing how that changes things, if that changes things, if maybe, to explore courses and things like that, because I also personally, everything you just said about how you want to start doing things with concepts, that's how I teach at the moment. And that's really shifted the way that I see how parkour fits into society, and what other tools do we have to express this idea. Do you know what I mean? We talk about parkour as a tool to express an idea, but what other things do you do? You also do hip hop. We did this whole interview, we didn't actually talk about this as well, as Biko's way more than just parkour. Biko also freestyle raps. What else do you play? Freestyle rap. Study a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, so from time to time I like to freestyle, even though I got a bit rusty, I would say. Anyway, then obviously I like basketball as well. I played it quite some time when I was a teenager, still now from time to time. I got a bit into kendama, especially when I was in Ollerup. There was this dude K from Japan, fucking killed it. So I got also a bit into that, and at the moment, but actually since Ollerup I also got even more interest in parkour because it's just perspective change, and now I think there's even more I want to explore. But I'm just curious for 2021. It just started quite good, and 2020, even though it was Corona times, because I lived in Ollerup bubble, it was a quite pleasant time for me.
Yeah, how was last? No, I'm not even going to say it. How was Ollerup with COVID?
I would say in general in Denmark when I arrived there, it was not as strict as here. People were wearing masks at that time. Over time, it got more strict. In the end, actually, we had also to wear masks inside the school. But for me, it was I had quite normal experience there. I could train, we had parties, we could interact with other people. So it was kind of Corona light for a long time till it got more serious, and then was kind of similar.
For me, I think that's everything that we kind of talk about. We've tried to in detail talk about this, and we've gone into the concept idea, which is fine. In short, go check out Ollerup. Usually they have 2 jams a year. It's also a place that you can you have to call ahead. You can go there, and I think you can pay for a room and you can kind of experience it. If you know somebody as a student that's there, I guess if you're a parkour person wanting to go and visit, you would have to then get in touch with Jonathan Lindy, who is who is the parkour guy there. Get to know him, but it is possible to go there and just see what the place is like.
And the jam is also always there.
The jam is amazing. The jam is fantastic.
Maybe a summer jam this year. Let's hope Jonathan gets it done. Let's hope COVID doesn't block it.
Yeah.
But I would love to.
And I think, yeah, I can speak for myself, but if you do come along and you see either myself or Biko there, have a chat with us about it. As you've just seen, we can talk about this stuff for days. And I think it's a really interesting topic, and it's definitely something that I now have a passion for. And that's why I tell everyone to go there. So is there any kind of final words from you?
I mean, it was so much. I think we tried to cover as much as we could and jumped a little bit into detail. Just like check out Ollerup. Props to Jonathan for making this nice parkour classes and even more teaching much more than that actually.
Yeah.
And also come to the Halle if you're in Hamburg. Or yeah, if you're from Hamburg,
you know he's been to Hamburg. Right. This isn't the time for it. I'm just going to say it just now. Do you know he actually came to Hamburg with my mate Connor or Carol as well, and they didn't even.
What did they do here?
They came to some heavy metal concert, and then didn't say anything to us. So I'm just going to leave that there. Yeah, calling you out, Jonathan, Lindy, Ollerup. Come to Hamburg. Come check us out. Come have a good time.
Time to play on this bar setup you see.
Yeah, come and critique our bar setup. Jonathan Lindy, just as an end thing, he also has designed. I feel I might be hitting this way out. I think he has at least helped design. I'm not going to go numbers. He's designed a lot of parkour parks. If you want advice about bars,
and Svanborg went like close to Ollerup lately. So he just lately designed one together with. Denmark is just like loads of parks.
Gold mine for parks. If any of you want to do parks, look at it. Jonathan is a guy to look up. I can't really say more, or I can say more, but I don't think we're going to get any more sense out of me at this point.
Yeah, maybe make a part 2 at one time.
Yeah, that would be nice. If you guys have any questions, chuck them in the comments below or send them to any of our Did You Halle social medias. We are more than happy to answer them and get some chat going. As I think the end of the point is, chat is good, discussion is good, always have discussion. That's part of the reason why I've been wanting to do these interviews. They're not classical interviews because obviously I'm here and I chat too much, but at the end of the day, it's just discussion. So join in, get involved with this discussion, send me messages, we can do this. So for me in Did You Halle, it is a goodbye.
Yeah.
From Biko.
Same, also goodbye. Stay gangster.
Life gangster.
Life gangster, I think it's the right thing to finish it.
Much love and bis nächste Woche. Next week, I need to confirm this because I actually need to message him.
What happens next week?
If all goes to plan, I'm going to speak on his behalf. Hopefully it'll work. But we might have a Mr. Ed Scott coming to talk about gymnastics and parkour. I messaged him about it. He said he's down. We just need to fix a few things. So maybe next week, Ed Scott. If not, it will definitely be soon. But we will be talking hopefully about gymnastics, parkour philosophies, how they mix, how they don't. And I think that might be an interesting conversation coming off of the back of Ollerup as well.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Bis nächste Woche. Much love. Bleib gesund. Thank you for today.
Good. Bye.
Bye.